Okay, and I had one information item. I just wanted to let the board and the public know that we lost a great man Sunday. The Honorable Powell Rivers passed away this Sunday. Mr. Rivers he served our country as a Navy pilot, and then he was also an educator in our school system, and he became the clerk of the court in 1983 and served in that position from 1983 to 1993. He was a very beloved clerk, and we will miss Mr. Rivers.
Yes, he was a good friend.
And one of the things he did as a naval aviator that he was proud to tell people was that he was one of the first men to teach Neil Armstrong how to fly. Neil Armstrong was the first man on the moon. And he and Mr. Armstrong remained in contact. And I saw a letter yesterday that actually Mr. Moscona's had in his possession from Neil Armstrong to Powell Rivers thanking him for teaching him how to fly during the war.
He was a great person. Thank you. Does anyone have anything for me?
No. Just have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, too.
I can remember though Mr. Powell coming before the board and he'd say, "Cheryl, you just like old Ralph." I said, "No, I'm not like old Ralph. I'm that daddy." But he was a good man.
He was very involved with the county commission and did a lot of the airport. In fact, the commission named a road, Powell Rivers Road, the airport road.
Yeah, I just said the other day when Miss Annie passed away, I said it won't be long and he'll be joining her, and sure enough it was. So, anyway,
Thank you.
don't know what to say about it.
Okay. Next will be Mr. Alan Pierce, Restore Coordinator Report.
Okay, this report's pretty straightforward, I hope. First item is restore update. I'm still working with U.S. Treasury to get an amendment approved for an extension of the timeline for our development of MYP. And as you know, we'll be talking about that again in January. I'm still working with Treasury on response to the compliance review. I had a conference call with Treasury personnel on November 16th regarding our compliance review, and in your board packet, I've sent a response back to Treasury based upon that conference call. So we're making progress. I've submitted the proper response before November 30th, and now we wait for them to respond with my response. Number two, Commissioner Sanders attended the consortium meeting in Sarasota on November 15th. She might have additional information, but it appears the state expenditure plan, or known as the SEP, is slowly being developed. I have seen a draft, and all the county's proposed projects are in the SEP. The problem is that every county wants to be funded in the early phase of the 15-year plan, and so the issue is going to be how to allocate the money. The draft SEP should be available for public review on December 15th. After the public comment is over, the SEP is sent to the governor, and then the governor has to get the SEP approved by the Gulf Council, which is a federal entity. So I expect the SEP will not be final until spring of 2018. But there's another problem for the consortium. The Gulf Council believes the consortium does not have the internal structure to handle the disbursement of funds. So the consortium has to create something called the SSEP, which is the Stand-Up State Expenditure Plan, which will be the accounting and financial structure for funds to be spent on projects in the SEP. In short, the consortium is having to create the same sort of internal financial oversight that Franklin County is having to create in order to satisfy the U.S. Treasury. Franklin County will create the financial administrative oversight through the grants manual we're creating. The consortium is doing it by creating this thing called the SSEP. And I defer to Commissioner Sanders for anything else that went on down there, but it's...
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that went on. It was not good. I did not like it, but anyway, they wanted to do a change to the conflict of interest portion of the consultant's contract to where it would not be a conflict for ESA to go out and be bidding on these projects that they've helped put together during the state expenditure plan. So I said it, and the attorney for the consortium said to deny the request, and the consortium, I had a no vote on it, and they voted to allow the attorney to speak with ESA to see if they can work out something, and she will be coming back to the board in February, and I told them I am completely against that I was for the recommendation of the attorney, and that was to deny the request to change the contract, because I was concerned with changing that contract. You're opening the consortium up to all the other people, all the other companies that wanted that contract too underneath those terms also, but were not given the chance. So, I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
And Commissioner Sanders, it was a very controversial vote. It was 10-8.
It was like 10-8 the vote
It was
was.
a split
So
vote
it was
on the
very,
consortium. and there are 23 members, so 5 members weren't even there.
Well, you had some staff there that was not really supposed to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, so it being in Sarasota, there's a lot of people that weren't able to go. But anyway, there's a lot of things about the stand-up, you know, SCP came in the stand-up part of it, and that's totally out there. So, I mean, I don't know, Mike Soul, who is one of the governor's appointees, was very concerned about some of this stuff too. So, you know, we all were. So, anyway, we'll just see what comes down. But we're trying to move ahead and see what happens. But I don't know how the eventual product is going to come out.
It's possible, Commissioner Sanders, is saying what you said, is that if the consortium continues to buck what the governor's representatives are suggesting and recommending, it's possible when the governor gets this thing that he may say, wait a minute, y'all, or, you know, I agree with you completely, I can see a big problem coming down the line. So projects and money that we are anticipating being able to spend sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? And it's like you said, after the governor gives it, then he's got to sell it to the Gulf Council. You know, but during the governor looking at it, he can kick out anything he wants because he's the governor. You know, but let's just see what comes down. But this is, I mean, it's getting into the ground zero type stuff, to where it's actually getting into the, and you can start seeing the inner workings. It's unreal.
If there are no more questions on that issue, then I'll go to item number 3, Triumph update. As the board is aware, a public meeting was held November 7th with the 2 cities and the school board to discuss the Triumph projects and funding. Mr. Scott Remington, Triumph Board General Counsel, made an excellent presentation. While the excuse me, while the county had received 4 pre-applications from the city of Apalachicola, 4 from the city of Carabel, and 2 from the school board, it was agreed by all that those applications will be submitted to Triumph directly by the applicants. The county agreed to submit 1 project for the Armory, and FSU agreed to submit 1 project for utilizing the FSU Marine Lab to develop an oyster hatchery and continue research focusing on the revitalization of the oyster industry in the Apalachicola Bay. As of November 15th, which was the deadline the Triumph staff had set for project to be included in the first round of consideration, the following projects have been submitted for activities in Franklin County. And they're all on the website, and I can download all the documents where they're there on the Triumph website for those who are interested. There were 4 pre-apps from the city of City of Carabel for $1.76 million total. There were 5 pre-applications from the city of Apalachicola for $6.62 million. There was 1 from the county, as I said, for $2 million, and then 1 from FSU for $8.3 million, for a total of $18.68 million. The school board did not submit any pre-apps under their own name before the November 5th deadline. All the pre-applications are online, and it's possible the school board was partner to a regional project, but I don't want to speak for the school board, but they didn't submit anything on their own. So that's just information. The current legislation creating the Triumph Board directs Franklin County to receive at least $15 million of Triumph funds. According to Mr. Remington, the Triumph Board and staff will review the pre-applications. Those pre-apps that look favorable to the Triumph Board will be asked to submit a full 30-page application. One of the questions on the full application will be whether the proposed project has the support of the County Commission. Since the Triumph Board has yet to hire a full staff to review the pre-applications, it is not known when all the pre-applications will be reviewed, as 95 pre-applications were submitted to Triumph by the November 15th deadline. I attended the November 8th Triumph Board meeting in Wakulla County, and I'm going to go to the December 8th meeting, Triumph Board meeting in Panama City. And after that, then I'll give you all an update on the 19th, because we'll have a better idea then how fast they're going to review these things, who's going to be reviewing them. I mean, we'll know more then. Okay. Number 4, several commissioners asked for a brief summary of the FSU Hatchery Project, Oyster Hatchery Project. The FSU project entitled the Apalachicola Bay System Initiative, and it builds on the concept that something more needs to be done than just put shells in the bay. The project proposes to develop an oyster hatchery at the FSU Marine Lab and to continue research on a variety of fronts to help the bay back to productivity. The oyster hatchery will produce oyster spat for use in the bay. FSU is asking for $8.3 million of Triumph funds over a 5-year period. So it is possible that some of the FSU funds, FSU is seeking will come out of later Triumph disbursements to Franklin County. FSU plans to contribute $4.65 million in cash to the effort, as well as an additional $4.25 million from other state and federal funds for the project. Thus, the matching component that FSU is putting into this project is slightly more than 1-to-1, which exceeds anybody else's proposals. I mean, they made a significant investment in this project, so we'll see how the Triumph Board reviews this. But I have no idea of the timeline.
Well, we never discussed that.
Well, unfortunately, the timeline is really not in our control. It's really up to Triumph as to when they'll review, give it consideration, Commissioner. I don't have
I'm
any.
not talking about that, I'm talking about before. We discussed what we were gonna do, we didn't discuss.
That's correct. I mean, the FSU people were in the audience, but it wasn't discussed by you all. So they submitted that application by themselves.
Well, I got a question, I need a question.
Mm-hmm.
Now what is the University of Florida?
They never submitted anything.
I mean, where they gonna be at in this situation?
Commissioner, that's a good question. The University of Florida, as you know, has received money from other funding sources to look at aspects of the bay. In fact, there was a meeting here, not here, but in the city building last week. There are articles in the paper about it, where the University of Florida presented their findings from the last 5 years of their analysis, and it talked about the decimation of the oyster bars by sponges and oyster predators, and the problem the oysters are having getting to maturity because of all these predators. But the University of Florida has as much right as FSU to submit something, and why they didn't, or what they're looking for, maybe next phase, I don't know. The University of Florida has not contacted the county, so I don't know what they're up to.
I guess my question will be, do we have to, with our involvement, do we have to pick one?
At this time, no. I mean, the FSU.
Whenever they come, whoever get it?
Well, I'll be honest, I think the selection's gonna be done by the Triumph Board.
I know, but I'm talking about with them dealing with us, or we out the deal anyway.
Well, I don't know. It's too early for me to say that. It's certainly possible that I have not looked at the 30-page application, so I don't have any idea what other questions are in there. It's certainly possible that FSU or the University of Florida, if they submitted one, would have to come to the board, and there might be additional things that we all have to work together, agree to. I mean, I don't have any idea what the application is going to require.
Well, my thing is this, see, the University of Florida been doing it for 5 years.
Yes, sir.
And the bay's still in the same situation. I think they need to check out Gameville and leave Appalachia alone.
And they may have come to that conclusion, Commissioner, because I don't know why they didn't submit anything.
Real quickly, and I will let the board know this, I approached the University of Florida about trying to help us with a hatchery and different things, and they didn't want any part of it. They didn't want nothing to do with a hatchery or anything else. I agree with your assessment. They've been here for 5 years. They've never come to the board and told us what we're doing, how we're doing, asked the board for any input. They went through, everything went through the SMART group. And it's just like the covering up of the oysters last week by some of the barge planting. Well, the state gave that company that's planting the rocks, I guess you'd call it, they gave them a contract to plant it and told them where to plant it. And when Michael Marone called the state about it earlier in the week, the state said, well, we got our information on where it needed to be planted from the SMART group. So the SMART group told the state where they thought they needed to plant it. The state gave the shelling company a contract saying this is where it needs to be planted. And then when everybody starts raising sand, they come back to the county, which had no input about where it was being planted or what was being planted. So really our hands were tied. Wasn't nothing we could do because the shelling company had a contract that the state had gave them. And you just don't go break a contract without repercussions. If the state breaks a contract, there's repercussions, and if the shelling company don't do what they're supposed to, there's repercussions on that end too. But everybody called us, I know they probably called the rest of them commissioners too, stating, y'all need to stop it, y'all need to stop it. Well, we didn't start it, so we couldn't stop it. It just put the county in a bad position, but anyway, we're just hoping it all turns out good. But anyways, that's kind of where we're at, and I just want to let everybody know that the University of Florida was approached about helping us do something different besides planting shells, and they had no interest, and that's where FSU picked it up.
Well, they called me last week too, and I told her I ain't know nothing about them planting no shells. We out of the loop.
Right.
We out of the loop, just like you said, but we getting the blame for it, for what the SMART group.
So can I, so the thing about it is now University of Florida don't want to do it no more. So we got the FSU stepping up, and Dr. Coleman, Dr. Felicia Coleman is a very astute person in the oyster stuff and all that. That may be a good thing. that may be a good thing, but what do we do in the meantime, you know? So you're saying that she's gonna be able to do a project through the Triumph Board too?
Yes, now, actually, it's my understanding that Felicia certainly was involved in the application, but it was not her name on the application. It was actually her boss's name was on the application.
Okay,
But it will be done at the FSU Marine Lab, so she
Yeah.
will be involved.
Yeah.
yeah.
And one thing, and I know Alan or Michael or somebody sent everybody what FSU was doing. If you read that, it tells you that they're gonna be looking for different strains of oysters that can grow in a saltier climate, which is what we have now than what we used to have. You know, 20 years ago, you could put shells out there and oysters would just proliferate. Well, that ain't happening no more. We don't have the same environmental conditions. We're not getting the fresh water we need down the creek to create the salinity balance that we've always had. Things have changed, and if we don't try to change with it, you know, y'all know the speech I gave on October the 15th, if we don't do something. It was reported at one of the last committee meetings, and I'll hush and let this, before we can move on, but it was reported that after the monitoring, there was an average of 5 bushels of oysters per acre in this bay. 5 on an acre of property. I don't think it's ever been that low.
No.
Even after the hurricanes in 1985, there was more than 5 bushels of oysters per acre left in the bay.
You're right.
So we got to do something, and, you know, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. I just know that we can't keep just putting shells out there because it ain't working, and we got to try to find something that can bring this bay back where the people that work on the bay can continue to make a living for their families and continue on with our heritage and our culture and our way of life. Without oysters in the bay purifying contaminants when you do get a river rise coming into Apalachicola Bay, if you don't have those oysters out there purifying that water, which is a huge water quality feature, all those contaminants just settle in the bay, and I can assure you, everything's going down. Your guide fishing, your shrimp, everything's gonna be gone. But if you don't have live oyster bar in this bay and filtering that water for us, everything's going away. Everything's gonna go down, and it's gonna be a disaster. So we're just trying to look at different ways that we can help the bay and try to figure out how we can help it to recover and provide the water quality, but also provide the people that depend on that bay for a living.
Well, you know, I like that way of thinking though, because now what strand of oysters used to produce in this bay are not producing in this bay now. So I like that idea. I like going in there. It would still be the Apalachicola oyster no matter what strain
Right.
you put in there.
Right.
but-
Well, that's just some of the things that they're gonna try to do over there, is looking at different areas that we could plant,
Yeah.
different strands of oysters that might
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
better under the environmental conditions we have. And I just think that's our way forward. It's either that or do nothing, and I can't see doing nothing. We've
Well-
got to do everything we can do to help the bay to try to recover. And when it's all said and done, whether it recovers or whether it don't, I want it to be said that we done everything we could humanly possibly do to help that bay recover.
Well, and that goes back to the institutional knowledge too, Mr. Chairman, because if some of those folks had listened to that institutional knowledge here, you know, you gave it, every one of us gave it. I mean, we've got institutional knowledge going way back. And when you don't use that institutional knowledge, you kill a large part of how we got to where we're at. So, you know. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 5, inform the board that I was in contact with the state hazard mitigation personnel, and they recommend the board submit an application to purchase the Alligator Point Fire Department building on Alligator Point. The purchase would allow the county to relocate the west end of Tom Roberts further away from the shore. The west end was slightly damaged during Hurricane Hermine and is exposed to continued damage. The purchase would also remove 2 curves in the current alignment of the road. The purchase would also provide the fire department with some funds to begin construction of a new fire station in a safer location on land they already own. The purchase would be contingent upon an appraisal acceptable to the fire department. At this point, we can talk about it. Commissioner Sanders is here now, and she and I talked before last meeting, and I advised you all of that. But there's no action to be taken yet. I'm still waiting for direction from the hazard mitigation people. I spoke to them Monday, and they were now working. I'd sent up a draft sort of summary of what I thought we would accomplish, and they're working on that. As soon as it gets back to me, then I'll give you all.
Will that be the funding mechanism? Or they got the state hazard mitigation program, they have a funding mechanism?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We would apply similar. I don't know to be 100% like we got with the Capital City acquisition, but it would be a funding mechanism. Yes, through the hazard mitigation. That's correct.
We want that 100%.
That's
Well-
what, you know what I always say, no county funds involved.
Right. Well, this is fire department. We'll see what happens, yeah.
I was
yeah.
planning on.
I mean, we're not getting this benefit in the fire department. I think that's a good use,
That's right.
a good use of the funds.
Yeah. Next item is inform the board that I received a phone call from Ms. Carrington of the governor's budget office. The governor has approved the waiver for Franklin County, although she was not sure if it was a full waiver or partial. According to Ms. Carrington, the waiver is approved through a funding agreement between the governor's office and the State Division of Emergency Management. I have called DEM to verify what type of funding is being authorized at Franklin County. As soon as I hear, I'll let the board know.
Now, this is on the FEMA application to rebuild the road down there?
This would cover everything, but the principal cost we have from Hermine was the road, that's correct. Of the $4 million we have in, I say 4 million, Pam may have a slightly different number. In the $4 million we had of damage accrued by Hermine, 3.2 million was Alligator Point Road by itself. So the majority of the funding would go back to taking care of the cost of rebuilding the road, so we wouldn't have to take out a ballpoint trust fund. That's the goal.
So we can get that same waiver to go with this number 5?
I have no idea.
Just apply the same waiver and then we won't have to put out of pocket?
It's not our waiver to apply, it's the governor to apply.
Well, just
We
try.
can try, but I don't
Good
think
try.
it's-
I mean, come
Sounded
on.
good.
And basically what the governor office does, they have to work with the DEM to figure out how many other counties and how many other jurisdictions are gonna get a waiver, because that money comes out of the state.
Okay.
So they gotta balance what they can afford to get.
Okay.
And that's the end of my report.
Any questions for Alan from the board? Next will be Mr. Michael Morone, County Coordinator Report.
I think I got a short one for you guys today. At the last meeting, the board directed me to research the certification process that would allow someone to apply for an oyster harvesting license. This request was based on proposed legislation that would change the license issuing agency from the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, DACS, to the city of Apalachicola. Mr. Kyle Knickerbocker of DACS informed me that the state would continue to certify applicants, which would include showing the required videos and providing whatever other classes are needed. Once that process is completed, the applicant will receive a certification from DACS that could be given to the issuing agency to receive their harvesting license. I'll also I know the board, the last meeting talked about not being comfortable with DACS switching to the city of Appalachia without coming to the board. And I don't know what kind of love fest is going on between DACS and the city of Appalachia. I don't have a clue, but Kyle told me for the most part, it'll be more difficult to change the agency at this point. He's not saying it's impossible, but it'd be more difficult. I asked him, what about changing the amount of money we charge for the license? And what kind of administrative, and capping the administrative costs that the city could get? He said that's a lot easier to get done through the legislation.
Mr. Chairman? I've had, before the last meeting, because, I got sick, I had several people call me concerned with the city of Apalachicola taking over the license. They're concerned, they're just concerned. They're concerned that this is a county, we're county, and that they would like to see the county take over that now. I'm just saying, and I had about 6 people call me about it, so just letting you know.
Michael, on this issue, I know you were going to speak about limiting the amount of administrative costs. And the way the current proposal that I read says the city will issue the license and collect the money. And I guess they keep the money, or does the money go back to the state, less administrative fees?
And I'll turn to Attorney Schuler, who reviewed the legislation a little closer than I did. It just says, what I read, which I expressed concern about this a few meetings ago, it says a trust fund. It didn't say necessarily the state's trust fund, it didn't say which one. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I can investigate that some more.
Well, you're saying here that the DACS informed me that the state would continue to certify the applicants, which would include showing the required videos, providing whatever other classes are needed. Once the process is complete, they get a certification and they go down to the issuing agency and get their license. So my question is the state going to continue to handle the money and pay the city of Apalachicola a administrative fee for issuing a license, or?
I didn't get that impression from Cal, no, sir. It sounds to me like the city collects all the money, and then they're going to get administrative costs, and then they put, that legislation, I think it said they put the balance of the money in a trust fund, is what the legislation said. And I don't know if the same type of, the general inspector's trust fund that the state had to do it, or does the city create a bank account of their own and call that the trust fund? That I'll have to research further.
I think you should conclude that the city of Apalachicola is going to create a trust fund to keep, because the state of Florida is getting out of the oyster industry.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but
The monies will be collected and administered by the city of Apalachicola in a trust fund that they are going to create and administer. Once they take out their administrative fees, then the balance under the legislation is supposed to be used for several purposes enumerated in the proposed statute,
That's
which
right.
includes
A list, right?
reshelling and some other authorized uses, but not for general revenue purposes.
So I've read all that, so
Yeah,
I'm
so-
aware of that, but
and I'm anticipating something here. You guys are gonna direct me to write a letter saying what you would prefer, what changes you. We could also include, besides, if you wanna cap the
I
admin
was
fee,
gonna say,
change the
that's what I
license
was-
fee, do you want the county to be the ones that they remit the balance to keep the trust fund? Is that something the board wants to think about? Okay.
Why wasn't the county even notified of this change? This is what I'm saying. Where did this come from? Why are we looking at a supposed state project, a state program going to a municipal entity? That's what,
I was told that because the city did administered the reshelling program, the state felt more comfortable passing this process on to the city. It's one of the reasons that was given to me. And I reminded them, we didn't know anything about this until that night we had the legislative delegation. That's
Everybody
when
was up there approving
I
it
first heard about it. I
and
don't know if anybody else heard about it before
Yeah.
then, you know.
yeah, I didn't hear nothing about it.
No, not at all.
there was some discussion of the license being extended to making it a 2-year license or a 3-year license or something like that, which we only have to buy one time instead of having to pay this $100 every year. I mean, that was a discussion too, and
Yes.
I don't know, you know, if that's something the board wants to entertain or,
Mr.
you know,
Chairman,
we still got some time that we can look at it and
Yeah.
figure out what we wanna do. The legislative session starts in January.
January.
Yes.
Our legislative day is gonna be February 7th, so.
Yeah, it's-
So we still got a little bit of time that we can gotta
Think about
get
this
wrap our heads around this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, while we're discussing this, I would like to add, last time we talked about, I mentioned something about the capital administrative fees. And looking back at the way the state handles some of the other licensing, I think some of the figures I threw out were very generous. Anybody that does hunting and fishing license for the state in places of business get 50 cents a license. That's administrative fees. They get 50 cents for issuing a license. I just thought I'd throw that and make that, make sure we're all aware of that when we're thinking about this subject.
I don't see why they got to have no license themselves. They don't need none. Other places don't have to have them. It's the only place in the state of Florida that require oystermen to have a license. Don't make sense. You go to Southport, you don't have to buy no license. Pensacola,
I agree with you, Mr.
Walcott,
Lockley.
down south, everywhere there's an oyster bar. It's the only place. The people ain't making no money, and then they want $100. They ain't making $100 a day. They not making $100 a day out there. They gonna take that 100, take the gross out the people mouth, talking about a license, cause the city of Apalachicola done messed up all their money. That don't make no sense.
I agree with you.
I don't care about it.
I agree with you. I don't think, when the license came in effect, if I remember right, and Chairman Parrish, correct me if I'm wrong, that came in effect after the 1985 hurricane
correct.
to try to help restore it and everything.
That's correct.
And I'm gonna tell you, if Dax is washing their hands of the Apalachicola Bay, basically, that's how it's been portrayed to us by Alan, talking with the Department of Ag. Why are we worried about, why aren't we fighting for our people not to be able to have a license then? I mean, because, like I said, if Dax is gonna do the filming, the movie and all that.
Why can't they take up the money?
But, I mean, they ain't gonna have that money because city of Apalachicola was gonna take up the money. So, and they were just gonna do, I just don't understand why we got licensed anymore. I'm like Mr. No on that. You know, we tried to do something about it a few years back, Mr. Lockley, to do away with them.
Well, you gotta, if you look at it from a different perspective, as you said, that's what they done in 1985. Well, guess what? We're just about there again.
We are.
And if you rebuild the bay and then you just allow 10,000 people come in here and go oystering, well, it's gonna go right back down again. So you have to look at it from that perspective
Yeah.
also. I understand y'all's perspective about no license, I understand that. But when there's no license, there's no license for anybody.
But on that license, if we have to go with the license, on that license, they don't need to be charging no 18% administrative fees either.